Kim Abbott. I'm with Rachel, Carroll, Rivas, and we are the co-directors of the Montana Human Rights Network. And we want to welcome you to our 30th anniversary virtual celebration. Obviously, we had hoped and planned on being with y'all in person, and had some big events planned around it, but we have to be nimble because we're in scary and uncertain times, and we want to be responsible, but we also want to reflect and celebrate. In that spirit, we want to acknowledge that not everyone can push pause and take the time to celebrate and reflect. And we definitely recognize it's a privilege that we can do that, and we're excited to do that here with you tonight. I will say that we recognize that even during a global pandemic, you could be doing a lot of things tonight. You're here with us, and we appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Yeah, thanks y'all for being with us. I'm just gonna give you a rundown of what we're up to tonight. Kim and I are gonna share some reflections, and then we get to hear from some amazing people. We're gonna hear from Tanya, Gersh, and some music from Holiday Quest, and some reflections and poetry from Mandy Smoker Broaddus. I'm also going to direct you to the event page on Evite to be able to look at some really phenomenal premium gifts that we're offering from really great people around the state that contributed to the Human Rights Network's efforts tonight and to our work all year long. These include Indigenous artists like Carroll as well as some really beautiful gifts from local businesses, which we're all trying to support right now. So it's an opportunity to sort of do that 2-for-1, support some great folks and the Human Rights Network. And you can snag some merchandise or share with your friends if you're not able to be on tonight, and they're not able to be on tonight and you want to grab a hat or shirt. So use the event page to do that and the ticket button. We're going to move in tonight then to some other speakers. Oh, and I wanted to thank the folks who attended the workshops today. 2 phenomenal workshops by staff of the Montana Human Rights Network working on the issues that we work on every day. So thanks for being with us today. Thanks for staying with us for the next hour. We're gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about the work we've been doing here for the last few years. So I don't know, Kim, thoughts, maybe reflections?
Yeah, I wanna start by saying thank you to Kev Ham for being in the studio with us and making sure that nothing goes wrong. And I also want to say, if something goes wrong, it's Kev Ham's fault. And we can all blame him, direct that blame his way. I've been at the network for 15 years. And so that's half the time the network's been around. And I really grew up in this organization. I got to work with incredible people. Ken and Christine, who founded the organization, to Garrett and Sean, who I work with every day now, organizing on a bunch of different issues, and everyone in between. It's been an incredible experience, and I think that we've done incredible work over the years. From our first effort on an initiative campaign in Raise Montana to raise the minimum wage in the state, to what has become an 8-year effort to first pass Medicaid expansion and since then defend and extend Medicaid expansion. We've gotten to work on some economic justice efforts. We've gotten to pass really important policies. Beyond that, our individual members and our local groups have engaged in local ordinance campaigns, in fights at the state capitol, both defensive fights to prevent really punishing policy that would hurt communities from passing, to proactive fights that increase fairness and equity in the state of Montana. I think we're incredibly proud of the work that we've all done together. You guys have been an incredible part of that. And we really look forward to being able to build on and expand that work in the next 30 years.
Yeah, Kim, I grew up in Montana, and I remember when the network worked to pass Dr. King Day as a holiday in its first years. And, I was a child. And so I've got to really see how the organization has grown and changed and the impact it's had. And I feel, too, really proud to be a part of a lot of the stuff we've got to do. I started working on research on the far right and organizing to end the death penalty, then working with our sister organization, the Policy Institute, really with that structure of thinking about how we gain power in the state through, developing leaders around progressive issues. And I think about all the folks, the activists that we've got to engage in, all the rallies we've been a part of, all the signature collections and the testifying. And I think about the local groups. I mean, the network formed at a time when White Nationalists and the militia movement was on the rise in the state, and people were trying to figure out how they joined together with all these individuals and small groups that were trying to figure out how they could collectively act, how to inform each other, act together, understand what was happening. Groups, you know, in Great Falls and Helena, groups like Love Lives Here and the Flathead, not in our town in Billings, Missoula Rises right now in Missoula, the Gallatin Valley, I know you got to do a lot with them, and even small towns. I look at our records and I think of days that I get to talk to people in Lincoln County and Sanders County, and you know, it's pretty phenomenal the number of people that have engaged and on issues like Montana's for Immigrant Justice, you know, and Montana Interfaith Network, just folks coming together from their different places that they identify with, that they want to work from, their localities, and really sort of bringing that all to the front. And we've had some key activists and founding members and staff that I think have some things to share with us tonight and to be able to reflect on. So we're going to go ahead and turn now to some words from some of those key activists and founding members, from some wise words.
I remember when the Montana Human Rights Network had their only employees were a quarter-time director. Some racist incident happened in Helena, and MHRN was on it immediately.
And probably early 90s is when I started going to it. And Ken Toole was kind of the face of the organization then, and of course Christine later. And it was an opportunity for me, someone coming from rural Nebraska, which was pretty white, to learn about what's going on with the rest of the world, the other America.
You know, helping to build the Human Rights Network was really what I would say is the greatest professional achievement in my lifetime. It's the thing I'm most proud of, for sure.
And everybody that I talked to was very skeptical about being able to work on civil rights issues and confronting white supremacist militia kind of activity in a state like Montana.
What about the legislature? You served 16 years in the legislature. Isn't that the greatest thing? And I always saw my legislative service as the extension, the mouthpiece really, for my human rights work.
And then going up to the state legislature and bringing people in and doing community education around that, I think is pretty unique. And the Human Rights Network has been doing it for years and continues to do it, and hopefully will be doing it a long ways into the future.
It's very hard to achieve public policy wins in our legislative session. I mean, there certainly were a few, but at the Human Rights Network was where the policy was developed, where we convinced people, where, you know, we talked to people in the communities. That was really doing the work.
Becoming acquainted with the Montana Human Rights Network gave me a chance to find out even more. Not that I could walk in the shoes of people that are discriminated against, but at least I could maybe walk alongside and learn what I could and be a better individual.
Whether it's LGBT civil rights or racism or healthcare, Montana Human Rights Network is there. They have my back and they have yours.
The first time we worked on civil rights legislation based on sexual orientation, we couldn't even get a sponsor in the Montana legislature. We could only get one sponsor to carry 4 bills that we had. We were brought in by Democratic Party leadership and told, no, this isn't the right time. And the network stood up and said, there's never a right time.
Trying to put sexual orientation and gender identity into the Human Rights Act here in Montana. And it's been tried for 29 years since then.
And there aren't a lot of groups that do that. It's often controversial. It's often uncomfortable personally for the leadership in organizations like the network and local affiliate groups, but it's absolutely critical.
And at the beginning, I was helping, you know, organize activists and communities to, you know, to get the right message out there.
And coming together with one vision of making this country what it was supposed to be.
This is my partner, Jackie, and they'd say, but I thought your mom owned Birds and Bees with you. I said, no, this is my domestic partner. I go, wife? And they go, oh, yeah. So the language wasn't here when we first came back to Montana. And then we lucked out because we jumped into people like Linda Greisen and Christine Kaufman and all the people before us had done such hard work that we kind of got just to ride the wave and support it. So that's kind of where we came in on it.
My favorite moment with our lawsuit that overturned the sexual deviancy law was when we had our attorney for the Northwest Women's Law Center, who was very pregnant, said, justices, I appear before you pregnant, so obviously I've had sex, but I'm not giving up my right to privacy in my bedroom or any other room in my house. And apparently the justices agreed with her.
Yesterday, we have this tremendous victory across the nation of inclusion of sexual orientation and gender identity in human rights laws that goes way beyond anything we were doing. Now, the Human Rights Network can't really take credit for that, but we were certainly part of help bringing consciousness to Montana around these issues in the early 90s.
And that's something that I think the network has really accomplished, the ability to have credibility, go into communities and confront these guys who are walking around saying, oh, we're just good Christians, pointing out the connections in the religious right and anti-gay activity around the state.
We felt like we were fighting everyone, Democrats, Republicans. Nobody wanted to talk about gay and lesbian civil rights.
The Human Rights Network has been absolutely unshrinking in challenging when we see militia groups talking about how they're just about neighborhood security and people talking, well, what's wrong with white rights? It's the Human Rights Network that has really stepped into that and called it out.
Well, about 10 years ago, a woman moved here from California. Her name was April Gaddy, and she wanted to bring neo-Nazis to an all-white area where they could reside and build a European homeland, a white European homeland.
When you look at the rise of white nationalism and the right wing, one of them sitting in the White House, it doesn't see. There's always going to be these new challenges and these new threats, and that's what the Human Rights Network is for.
Well, we found out about the Montana Human Rights Network when it was clear that to have a broader perspective for Love Lives Here, it ought to be a part of a statewide effort.
Well, I've been supporting them since they started, basically, for the last almost 30 years, I suppose. And they've always been there. And I think they're always going to be needed. All we have to do is look what's going on today.
What the Human Rights Network did was to really support us in a number of ways: in education, in visibility, in the organization itself.
Organized, mobilized, educate, and we're mentors to young people and even to old people like myself.
A kind of visibility that had more gravitas.
And I guess I contend that because the Human Rights Network has been around these last 30 years, we have a better informed citizenry, more ready to push back, to call out these anti-democratic impulses in our communities, and to fight back.
Love Lives Here has become the most active group for human rights in a town throughout Montana, and we've got a wonderful woman who runs the organization now, and she is fantastic at keeping programs going and keeping educational programs going, and she has, and we all have, a connection with Human Rights Network.
And I think that's what the Human Rights Network does best, and that's why the Human Rights Network needs to continue to exist.
The Nazis and the things going on in Billings and in the Flathead area, and probably even here in Helena, that some of us weren't aware of, and they brought it to our attention. And we need that continued awareness and support by an organization that's always going to be there and will educate future generations and future people as they come up.
We as Jews see the great necessity for a statewide action to say we're all equal.
You know, I think the most important thing that the Human Rights Network has done kind of in the big picture is it's one of the few groups in the country that combines really deep research and looking at political movements and thinking about how they're organized, combines that with organizing in the community and bringing people together and doing political education, and then also working on public policy, the work in the legislature in particular. And that's something pretty unique. You don't see a lot of groups that are doing the kind of research that MHRN has done over the years and has the kind of analysis that the Human Rights Network has, and talks to people about the interconnections between militia groups, the old Aryan groups, hardcore white supremacist groups, anti-gay sentiment, and how all of that really does fit together. And
you know, one of my best decisions and proudest moments, I guess, as director of the Human Rights Network is I got to hire Rachel, Kim, and Travis, who have provided such tremendous leadership to the Human Rights Network after I stepped away. I guess that was my next best decision, was stepping away at the right time, turning this over to a younger generation of activists that continue to remind communities how to be the best they can be.
Wow. Each of those people and all of you have really made some incredible work happen across Montana for the last 30 years. Those voices were the voices of folks who really made so much be accomplished in terms of human rights and really brought us into the moment to be able to accomplish so much more. I have asked a lot of folks who come before me working on human rights work their biggest advice, and they say that you'll find your best friends and the most moments of fun, even in the deepest, hardest work in this movement. And so I think we need to have a little fun tonight. And with that, we're gonna go ahead and turn it to our awesome friends, the Mr. Sisters.
Well, hello, can you hear us okay? Oh no, hello?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. If there's any technical difficulties tonight, just remember it's all Kev Ham's fault.
You heard it here first.
Well, for those of you that might not know, why don't you tell them who we are and a little bit about us?
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. We are two members, I should say. We are two members of the Mr. Sisters drag performance troupe. We are based out of Great Falls, Montana, so we're just a little bit north of where probably most of you are this evening, I suspect. But yeah, so we got invited to participate in this evening's event, and we are super excited to be here. I am Virgo Fatale, one of the original founding members of the group, and
I'm Lexi Tucker-Dixon, and so special for us to be with you here tonight. This is actually our 5th year anniversary of performing in Great Falls, and there was a long period of absence when there wasn't a drag presence in Great Falls until we got started again. And throughout tonight's events and donations, I just want you all to keep in mind that when you're a part of an organization such as the Montana Human Rights Network, that your work goes beyond what you might initially think and see, and you might be advocating for things that reach a broader spectrum, like drag queens feeling safe to come out again and have a presence for the LGBT community in rural Montana towns. So yeah, so what are we gonna do? I know we got some fun stuff planned.
Okay, so as all of you know, this evening is a fundraiser for Montana Human Rights Network. So we're gonna play a little game with you guys. So here's the thing.
There's a catch.
There's a catch. So we thought, like, ooh, how could we make this fun? How could we, play this little game and get people excited? And Lexi was like, we should take off clothes every time like a donation is made. But then we took off our clothes to put on our dresses, and we remembered what we looked like underneath all of this. And we're like, no. So what the incentive instead will be is for every donation that comes in to the Montana Human Rights Network this evening, we will add an article of clothing. Trust me, you benefit from this.
That's right. I thought there are tons of people in the world that are already doing the reverse, so why not put on clothes for money for a worthy cause?
Yes.
So don't forget, you can go to MHRN.org and make your donation to the Montana Human Rights Network. And we're going to get a little notification ping in the center of our screen. And every time that comes up, we will put on an article of clothing. And we've already got the fan going because this is hot already as it is. So let's start making those donations and make a difference for Montanans all across the board. So,
definitely.
Oh, look, we have our first one already.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So Lexi will go first, adding an article of clothing.
Funny little story is these are actually our Pride dresses for the first Pride that was in Great Falls quite a few years ago. That was the first one in eons. And this is the dress that I wore to sing the national anthem on top of the steps at the Civic Center. And I am just gonna tell you what, poly cotton blends are not your friend in heat.
Yes. So for anyone out there that's not necessarily familiar with drag, we are men dressed as women. And what?
I didn't know you were a man.
Did I spoil that? Oh my God. I am not a real woman. So if I fooled any of you out there, sorry, I guess.
She told you make a larger donation so that you can support organizations that support human rights so that art forms like this can continue to exist.
Yes. So anyway, so my point was, so there's a lot of layers that take place in order for us to pull
There's
this
another
off.
Donation. It's your turn.
Oh, it's my turn? Okay, okay. So I'm going to put something on, and Lexi's not kidding. These dresses are incredibly warm. I think she called them a poly cotton blend. There's absolutely no cotton in this whatsoever. They don't breathe. So I'm going to go ahead and put on these gloves, opera gloves.
Just gloves? Yeah. I thought you were going to put on like an outfit.
No. I think this counts. This is an enhancement. It's an accessory to what I've already got on.
Yeah. So an enhancement, sure. We'll just keep it going. So curious, Pride moments. Like it is Pride Month. We're raising money for worthy causes that directly affect people in the LGBT community and other marginalized communities. What's a funny Pride story yet? It's another donation.
Ooh.
All right.
All right.
Great. Okay.
Well, you put on another article of clothing. You were asking for a funny Pride story.
Funny Pride story.
Okay, so here's one. This one, no shade towards my sister. I'm going to go ahead and take this one. We, during the Pride that took place here in Great Falls several years ago, we participated in the parade. Thanks to Kev Ham, who invited us to participate. Lexi, as she mentioned, got to sing the national anthem, and
it's warm in here.
Yeah, you've got some layers on. Yeah, I'm getting a little toasty myself. I'm trying to get the second glove on. The struggle is real, my friends. So she got to sing the song. We were all standing on.
Sing is a generous word.
Thank you.
I was nervous.
She did beautiful. Don't listen to her. And afterwards, after all the speeches and everything had taken place, we decided to go out into the audience, and do a little performance. And my sisters decided that I would be headliner for that. And we decided to do We Are Family. Now, I don't know if anybody out there knows, but there's more than just the one verse that everyone's familiar with. I didn't know that. You know, like, you only ever hear like the very first verse and like the first chorus, and that's what I knew. So that's what I performed. So
and we just spun around so people couldn't see our mouths and made our way into the audience. But during that lovely story, 2 more donations came in. So I think you got to double up.
I do. It's my turn to put something on
So you start
again.
sweating. I'm so hot, but it's for a good cause.
It is for a
so
good
keep
cause.
those donations coming.
Yes. Oh, here we go.
A set of Mardi Gras beads.
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah. Girl lips. They're heavy.
Okay. Well, there was a couple donations came in, so like it should be that and then something.
See, I mean, the fact that I'm struggling so hard with just this strand should show you that this is more than adequate. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna have to dig. I want something good. I want something really good for you, Lexi. Ah, Mardi Gras beads in purple.
Look, good news, more donations. Okay, I'll
your turn.
I'll put on another outfit. We just keep those donations coming.
Now, what about you, Lexi? Why don't you tell us a funny Pride story?
Well, hang on just one second. I'm trying to work with some pant legs over here.
And like I said earlier, we are doing you all a favor by adding clothes instead of taking them off.
Okay, I'm gonna just try and squeeze into this yellow jumper.
She looks so good, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah,
There we go.
you look so cool over there.
Girl, these beads are weighty. So funny Pride story.
Well, my funny Pride story was that last year at Pride, speaking of putting clothes on,
Yes.
I had a little wardrobe malfunction and pulled a Janet Jackson at the halftime show. And I thought my performance was so great that, everybody was loving it and loving drag, and we were having such a great time that we brought drag down. And it just turns out that, the girls had decided they needed a show of their own. So that was embarrassing. More donations. Okay.
Okay. So that was a good one too. Okay.
It's very generous.
Okay. I got you. Don't you worry.
I have faith in you.
This.
You can do it.
We're doing this. 3 strands of Mardi Gras beads. It's getting hot under all these beads. Toasty.
So next year, I'm hoping that the Montana Human Rights Network will have us back. We would love to actually sing and perform for you. It has not been so easy. Everybody knows we're in the middle of a global pandemic. We have both been in isolation, so we're okay to be here with one another tonight. But we would love to look forward to it, next year and entertain you a little more. We're so happy we could be here tonight and do this. And there's, 2 more donations.
I believe it's your turn.
I appreciate your generosity so much, and I only wish that the effort that you were putting into your generosity was met by my screen mate here. And check it.
What she's talking about. Look at all of these.
So
we put on so many layers of jewels.
So hot. Why don't you tell them the story, Julie? Wait, you're not
Julie. Julie sadly could not be here. There are 3 Mr. Sisters. Virgo, obviously, I introduced myself earlier, Lexi Tucker Dixon. And of course, Julie Yard, who could not be present with us this evening. She is out of town, but we love her and we wish her well. And she wishes that she could have been here to celebrate with us.
I'm so hot.
You are so hot. And there has been another donation. So back to me, I suppose. Now I feel a little guilty because, Lexi just passed out. just briefly. And it is Montana, and y'all don't know what I look like outside of this, but basically a trucker. So, / lumberjack. So I'm gonna just go ahead and throw on a little bit of flannel. If I can get my, there we go. Lumberjack drag queen realness. How are you doing, Lexi?
Sorry, I don't know what happened, but I think we're almost out of time. So I just want to remind everybody to go to MHRN.org and make your donations. I am Barbara Walters, and this is 2020. Back over to you, Ham, in the Kev studio.
Each year, we at the Montana Human Rights Network present the Walt Brown Award. The award is named for the late Walt Brown, a civil rights advocate from Great Falls, who was the first president of our board of directors. This award has been bestowed on human rights activists who have changed the course of history in Montana by their fearless acts, relentless dedication, and strategic thinking. This year, we are pleased to honor Tanya Gersh of Whitefish. Tanya was thrust into the international spotlight not because she was the target of anti-Semitic white nationalist harassment, but because of how she responded with bravery and resolve to stand for herself, her family, her community, and all those targeted by bigotry. Thank you, Tanya. We honor you today, and thank you for once again sharing. You really do. 3 years ago, I was privileged by the mother of the alt-right leader, Richard Spencer, to share about her commercial building. And I was honored.
Know that we have a video problem. But
Hey guys, it sounds like we have a little bit of a video problem.
All Kev's fault.
Yeah, obviously. So we're just gonna take a minute and try to figure that out. You know, I wanna thank the Mr. Sisters for coming on and making this a real party. You know, they were great. We were laughing a lot here in Helena, and I hope that you guys were laughing a lot and giving a lot, frankly, from all of the places that you're calling in from. You know, I think when we reflect on Pride, we know, and it's June, you know, it's Pride Month, and this one has been different. I think we all acknowledge that the situation that we're in a bunch of different ways has been tough, and we haven't gotten to celebrate together in the way that we typically do. You know, our program, Equality Montana, is out really trying to meet with people and figure out different ways to community build and get together that aren't in person. And, you know, we're testing things out, and we hope that you guys have enjoyed different opportunities from that. You know, the other thing that I think is important to reflect on is that we know that Black folks, Black trans folks started Pride. You know, it was a protest, not a party at the beginning. And I think that the fact that we are in a real reckoning over structural and systemic racial injustice and police brutality right now in Pride Month gives us time to reflect on the history of Pride and the history of the LGBTQ movement and who was on the front lines and who started it. So I hope that we can spend time together soon, reflecting on our shared history and the activism that we can be part of in the future. And I think that with that, we are ready for the video.
Each year, we at the Montana Human Rights Network present the Walt Brown Award. The award is named for the late Walt Brown, a civil rights advocate from Great Falls, who was the first president of our board of directors. This award has been bestowed upon human rights activists who have changed the course of history in Montana by their fearless acts, relentless dedication, and strategic thinking. This year, we are pleased to honor Tanya Gersh of Whitefish. Tanya was thrust into the international spotlight not because of being the target of anti-Semitic white nationalist harassment, but because of how she responded with bravery and resolve to stand up for herself, her family, her community, and all those targeted by bigotry. Thank you, Tanya. We honor you today, and thank you for once again sharing your story.
I'm a real estate agent in Whitefish, and 3 years ago I was approached by the mother of the alt-right leader, Richard Spencer. Her name was Sherry Spencer, and she asked me to sell her commercial building. And when I received her phone call, I was honored. I felt like it was an opportunity to be a peacekeeper in my community, and I went ahead and took the call and spoke with her, and I trusted her. And I wrote her up a listing agreement, and she didn't send it back, and within a few days, there was a letter written to the median accusing me of extorting the mother of Richard Spencer. And from there, that caught the national attention of neo-Nazi websites, in particular the Daily Stormer website. And the owner of the Daily Stormer website, his name is Andrew England. He did a call of action to attack my family. He published my phone number, my email address, my home address, my husband's office address, my son's Twitter page and YouTube page. He targeted my Facebook page, and before I knew it, I was being bombarded with anti-Semitic hate coming at me from all different directions. I grew up in a small town, and I didn't know that anti-Semitism was a problem in the world. And if I did, I certainly thought that we had solved the problem a long time ago. I never imagined, after this many years of teaching the Diary of Anne Frank to our children, that there was still a population of people that truly hated me just because I was Jewish. And I suffered months and months and months of nonstop bombarding, phone calls, emails, text messages. They went to my business pages on the web, and every business page that they could to leave bad reviews and tried to destroy me in business and in my personal life. To say that my family was fundamentally changed by the experience is definitely an understatement. I often say that, in a sense, my virginity was lost. I used to really believe, and at that point, really believed in the goodness of people, and certainly never imagined that something like this could happen to me. What was to hate? But then I realized it was part of a really big issue that these white supremacists don't just hate me, they truly still hate my people. And to discover that through this time period was unimaginable. I went through a long period of suffering severe PTSD and medical issues and depression. At the same time, still raising two young sons that were saying, Mom, what do we do? How do we handle this? And it was because I had to look them in the eye and make a decision on what do we do. I realized that I wasn't gonna let this destroy my life. And I got lucky in that we got a phone call from Southern Poverty Law Center. They're a national legal organization that has been fighting hate crimes since the Civil Rights Movement. And they called and they said, Tanya, will you be our plaintiff? Will you help us take these people down? Because with your help, we can make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else. And when I had that opportunity, within a split second, knew that that was going to be the way that I was going to heal. I chose at that moment that I wasn't going to be a victim, that I was going to be a fighter. And a fight it was. It was 2 years of taking on the biggest neo-Nazi website in our country and going through each motion and filing each claim one step at a time until we finally made it to federal court and won a $14 million judgment and shut these guys down. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell. How are things now? Gosh, I feel like a completely different person, in good and bad ways. I feel powerful. I know through this experience that there's so much more love in the world than hate. During this whole time period, I was reached out to by Whitefish, my community, the greater population of Montana, all the way across the country and all the way across the world. I received love letters and packages and gifts of support, just simply saying, don't give up. You are not hated. There's much more love in the world than hate, and through that support, gave me a tremendous amount of energy to keep fighting and to keep my head on my shoulders, to really make me focus on the fact that there was a life for me before this hate entered my life, and it was a really good life. I was different. I was a lot more naive. But you know, the old saying of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger? Yeah. Someday, when I'm having a hard day, I still manage to pat myself on the back and say, Tanya, you're a superstar. Fighting was the right thing. And look at your children. It's my children that make me feel like a superstar. Now I'm traveling a lot, and I'm speaking to Jewish federations and to synagogues and to schools about the power of hate and the power of love and bullying and how to combat bullying and how to take on a bully, and of course how to change the and to make changes in the world to combat anti-Semitism. So that's the biggest way my life has changed. Never in a million years would I have ever thought that I would be a public speaker. Never in a million years would I have ever thought that taking on anti-Semitism as an issue to fight, that I would be a spokesperson for the spokesperson. Never in a million years would I have thought that I would be a spokesperson on the fight against anti-Semitism. And sometimes it still doesn't feel real, and it makes me think so much about Holocaust survivors and the pain that they have lived with for so many years. I've had the beautiful, beautiful opportunity of meeting with many of them and asking them permission for me taking the stance. We're losing Holocaust survivors right now. Their voices are starting to be buried. And it's so important that somebody keeps their voice alive, because it can and it will happen again if we don't continue speaking out. One thing that I talk to a lot of Jewish communities about is that this is the time to be out and proud and loud about our heritage. Both of my attorneys that represented me with the SPLC were fabulous gay attorneys and friends, and they taught me by watching them, and I really started to pay attention to the gay movement and realized when they faced hate, what did they do? They threw parades. And I'll tell you what, they sure deserve to, and I think it was their confidence that really has inspired me through this whole nightmare in my life, and it's something that I bring, and it kind of sounds silly, but let's learn from our neighbors and find strength where you need to find strength. And I'll tell you, if you're different in any way, it's time to throw yourself a parade. Don't let anyone bully you into thinking that you're anything but wonderful. One of the things that I talk about a lot within my story is the night that I found out that I was on a neo-Nazi website. I came home and my house was dark and it was also locked. I had to knock on the front door for my husband to let me in the house, and I was really confused by that. And I walked into my bedroom and there was luggage on the floor, and the luggage was empty, and I said, "Judah, what's going on?" And he said, "Tanya, we need to pack." And I said, "Where are we going, and why do we need to pack?" And that's when he opened the laptop, and I saw my face with a swastika on my forehead, and the call of action to terrorize my family. And the fear was hard to describe. It was like being completely frozen. And I said, "Are we going now?" And it was late at night, and he said, "Gosh, I don't know." I said, "Should we wake the children?" And he said, "Yeah, no. We just couldn't believe that our bags were packed and we were thinking of running and waking the children in the middle of the night because we were afraid for our lives because we're Jewish. In this day and age, how is it possible that this could still be happening?" And I think it was that moment of fear and that complete disbelief that made me truly turn inside and think of myself as a Jewish woman with history and ancestors of pain that this has actually happened to, and it wasn't very long ago. I realized at that moment that I was part of such a big picture, that this wasn't an attack just on me, this was an attack on my people. You know, I was unaware of the Montana Human Rights Network before this all began. I was definitely in my own little world of just helping out on a grassroots level, being a PTA mom and a soccer mom and doing what I can just to survive every day the best that I could. The outpouring of love that came my way from the Montana Human Rights Network was incredible. When I found out what the Human Rights Network was committed to doing, when I found out that there was an office of people that were fighting for what's right for all humans, it was overwhelming. And I will forever, forever be indebted to them and grateful for their love and support through such an excruciating time. And watching my community stand up for me, watching the city council declare that no more will, watching our city council declare that that hate will not be accepted in our community, holding the hands of our governor who flew out to sit with me and my children and my family and Rabbi Francine and Rabbi Setcher, and promised to me that this will not be tolerated, made me really, really proud to be a Montanan.
Next, we're joined by Montana's own Holiday Quest, a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist who blends country, bluegrass, folk rock, and blues in her own original music. She has shared the stage with Jewel, Colin Ray, the Doobie Brothers, Dennis Quaid, and other renowned musicians. And now tonight, she is sharing with us her song, Freedom, which she wrote for Dr. King Day events in the Flathead.
name is Halliday Quist. This is a tune that I wrote a couple years ago for Martin Luther King Day. This is called Freedom. There's been too many days lately where I'm feeling so low. Every time I hear the news, it's more war, more separation. How long ago did Martin have his dream? Take a chance and make a change to strive toward freedom. Freedom. Oh, let's take a chance and make a change for freedom. Freedom, yeah. You know what we gotta do for freedom, freedom, yeah, 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 yeah. Stand up, let's come together and sing out from your heart for freedom, freedom. Stand up, put your hands in the air. Sing out from your heart for freedom, freedom, yeah. Let's come together, yeah, yeah. Let's come together, yeah, yeah. Stand up, let's come together. Sing out from your heart for freedom, freedom, yeah. Stand up, put your hands in the air. Sing out from your heart for freedom, freedom, yeah, yeah. Let's come together. Ooh, let's come together. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's make a change for freedom. Freedom, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Have a good one.
Mandy Smoker Broaddus has nearly 20 years experience working towards social justice, equity, inclusivity, and cultural responsiveness, particularly in the realm of American Indian education. Mandy belongs to the Assiniboine and Sioux tribes of the Fort Peck Reservation in northeastern Montana. She is one of Montana's poet laureates, and we welcome her tonight.
Another attempt at rescue. The time is important here, not because this has been a long winter or because it is my first at home since childhood, but because there is so much else to be unsure of. We are on the brink of an invasion. At a time like this, how is it that when I left only a week ago, there was 3 feet of snow on the ground, and now there is none, not even a single patch holding on in the shadow of the fence line. And to think I paid a cousin $20 to shovel the walk. He and two of his buddies, still smelling of an all-nighter, arrived at 7 a.m. to begin their work. When I left them a while later and noticed their ungloved hands, winter made me feel selfish and unsure. This ground seems unsure of itself for its own reasons, and we do not gauge enough of our lives by changes in temperature. When I first began to write poems, I was laying claim to battle. It started with a death that I tried to say was unjust, not because of the actual dying, but because of what was left. What time of year was that? I have still not yet learned to write of war. I have friends who speak out, as is necessary, with subtle and unsubtle force. But I am from this place, and a great deal has been going wrong for some time now. The two young Indian boys who almost drowned last night in the fast-rising creek near school are casualties in any case. There have been too many just like them, and I have no way to fix these things. But I will not regret that those boys made it home or that the cousins used the money at the bar. Still, there are no lights on this street. Still, there is so much mud outside that we carry it indoors with us.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Your words, your activism, and your art has been meaningful to this community and the state for so long, and personally meaningful to myself, and I know has helped shape our work. And thank you, both Tanya and Halliday, for being part of this evening. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah, you know, these last few years, particularly these last few months, have been a really intense time with the march forward of anti-democratic and hateful movements, you know, right, butting right up against our efforts to advance human rights. And in the process, Montana has been thrust into the national spotlight periodically with the troll storm and Whitefish, and we heard Tanya's reflections. But also recently, we have those unplanned moments that really shake us, and we need to pay attention and learn from them. And so we're going to hear a few words from Samantha Francine, who was recently thrust into that national spotlight for, again, a moment of bravery in the face of an awful situation when she stared down a white man who yelled in her face at a Black Lives Matter event. So now, Samantha Francine.
I think the community is starting to wake up. We have so much more to do, but I have hope that with the attention that this has got, that we will start making the right decisions. You know, we've been called out, and now it's time to be called into action. Understand that there is a right and wrong in this, you know, and we do want to be on the right side of history this time. And so, yeah, sitting down and having the uncomfortable conversations, you know, asking people to use their white privilege to support people of color, you know, to use it to help us get a foot up so that we can be at the forefront of this movement right now. We aren't where we think we are. We want to believe that it's the year 2020, and like that photo of me looks like a photo from the civil rights movement, and there's a reason why. You know, we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We have to get out of our comfort zones. It's easy to talk to like-minded people and have an agreeing conversation, push people to do better, and hopefully we'll see growth. I do really believe that change is coming. I really do have hope for that. So.
Thank you, Samantha, for your words. I think many of us in the current moment are wondering how we show up for communities. And it's something that I reflect on, and it's something that I know that the organization reflects on. And I think that we have opportunities to show up physically to help protect communities that are under attack and we have the opportunity to show up financially to help communities on the front lines. And, you know, that's something that I think about a lot.
Yeah, I think about her call to using your privilege and your power and what that means, you know, for me and what that means for each of you. So I want us to encourage, you know, to continue to think about that call out and to march forward, continuing the work that's happened for 30 years, to keep doing it for the next 30 and the 30 beyond that, because it's going to take each and every one of us. We are so thankful that you all joined us for this 1 hour tonight, but we're hoping that you will continue to join us for the next hour and the next hour, because it's going to take all of that. We have been so really grateful and blessed for the folks that have stood with us since the beginning as an organization, knowing that being in organization really matters in this time, to come together, what the value of community is. I think, especially during COVID and pandemic, we realized that importance of acting together. And then in addition, in this moment of, you know, inner issue solidarity, that importance of acting together. And so we want to thank those folks that have been with us for 30 years, donating. We're going to share those names with you as we close out. But most importantly, we invite you not to just close your screen tonight, but to continue to be in this work every day, to be with us, and we will be with you. And so we thank you so much. Thank you, Kim, for being here with me and for doing this work together.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Good night.